What's up, guys? Welcome to this lecture on the user-centered design process, which is also known as the UX design process. So just really high level, this is how you actually design and eventually develop digital products. So how do you take something that's in your brain, like an idea, what stages does that need to go to eventually end up a fully tested, a fully working product? So the UX process, there's a few different ones about, but this is one that whenever I run a project, this is what I run it through, and it's probably going to be something you're going to be asked about in your interview. They might say, "What's your design process?" and you can use this one. So let's take a little look. So there's 6 stages in the UX process, or it's also known as the user-centered design process, the UCD. So you can use those names interchangeably, however you want, but the first thing we need to do is research. So let's take a look at what research is. And this is really understanding who we're designing for, which is the audience, which is the users, and what problems are we trying to solve. Because as I said before, every business at its core solves a problem. Your users want that problem fulfilled, and then we need to get rid of all the micro problems in between that gives them a good experience from beginning to end. So we start every project off with research. And the research phase is absolutely critical to the design process because it helps us understand what we're actually going to do. If we skip research and we just go ahead and design on assumptions, which some companies do and a lot of people just skip research altogether, but it means that you're designing on nothing really. Yeah, just an assumption, someone's idea. Research validates what people actually want, and we validate the user's needs, the pain points, the preferences, and we do that by talking to them. And research, it can be performed by a UI UX designer, it can be performed by a UX designer or a dedicated UX researcher. So I know a lot of companies, take for example Barclays in the UK, they've got a huge UX research team that's just dedicated to researching. And the bigger the companies, the more you can get these specialist niches. And if you enjoy this research section, then maybe that might be a way you want to approach your career. Maybe you might want to go into research. I know a lot of people come into UX from different points. I came in it from graphic design, so very visual, very UI focused, and I had to learn all this along the way. But other people are coming in from a scientific background, and that's perfectly fine. So they're more research orientated, and that's where, UX, think of it, it's a science really. It's a design science. We validate, we test our hypothesis, and for that we need research. So these are the things that we can do during the research phase, and we're going to take our project through this entire research phase together. So we're going to do qualitative and quantitative research. We're going to do user interviews, we're going to do surveys, diary studies, and analytics. So let me just go back a little bit and just quickly touch upon what some of these are. So qualitative means quality, and that's more like one-on-one sessions with a user. Quantitative is the quantity of people. So this, again, could be more surveys for a vast amount of people. Diary studies are an example of something that's very quality. That's where people use the product and they send us videos of them using it and explain pain points throughout the day. And analytics is an example of a quantitative research because we look at the analytics on everybody using the website and we draw conclusions from that. We're going to go into these very deep. So this is just a really high level. These are some examples. There's plenty more. The next step, once we understand the problem we're trying to solve, who we're trying to solve for, then we go into analysis. And the analysis stage in the UX design process, it kind of involves getting all the research data, and we're going to identify patterns and themes from that data. And we're going to get insights that can inform our design going forward. So basically, we've got all our research, and now we analyze it, and we come out with something at the end that we can use going forward. And it helps us understand the users, the needs, the context, And all the insights we gain from analyzing the data are going to help us make better design-related decisions further on down the line. And from that research that we have, we then get user personas, which are fictional representations of a user for our product. And that helps us really understand an idea of who we're designing for. It puts a face to it. It's like a story, really. We're going to develop journeys, so how that user flows through our product, and tasks, and what type of tasks they do. So do they want to find the local farmers market? How do they perform that task? So there's a couple of things that the analysis will then help us out with. Then we then take that into a design phase. And the design phase really starts off, let's call it low fidelity. And that's where we work on pen and paper, and we generate lots of concepts, wireframes, really early stage prototypes. And think of it like this: when you're designing a product, you're going to make a lot of mistakes early, and that's why we start low fidelity. On pen, paper, we can throw it away. We have meetings and workshops with other people from around the team. And as a designer, I did this when I was designing Barclays' website, so I might have had 10 people in the room, and I used to sketch a lot. And the more opinions you take in, and you show you're listening to people, then the easier it is to kind of sell that design further on down the line. So it's very cheap and easy to throw away pieces of paper, but it's very, very expensive to throw away code for companies. So we start off really low fidelity, doing sketching, agree the design with everybody, and then we then take that design, and it saves us time because we only need to make one version going forward. But ultimately, the goal of the design phase really is to create a solution that meets the user's needs, is technically feasible because we talk to people in our team, and it aligns with the project goals. So that's working again with other people in our team. And there's low fidelity, which is sketching. That's low fidelity design. Wireframes, low fidelity. And then there's high fidelity, which essentially is like prototypes which look and feel like the real thing. So the design phase is quite large, and it goes through an iteration of a piece of paper, pencil, to something that looks beautiful at the end of it. So, we've got sketches, workshops. We do a lot of workshops as designers because we're kind of the centerpiece for the team. So we take this fluffy concept and we make it real. So a lot of people have feedback. So we're the center of that. And then from that, we then we take it up the fidelity ladder and make it real. So once we've designed the product, we then implement the product. And that's where we turn the design into a working product. And this is where we work with people on our team, developers, stakeholders, and bring it to life. So this is after in the design process, we also did a lot of testing with users to make sure that we had a product that worked. And then once we've got it working and the users are happy, we then bring it to life in this stage. And we really want to make a functional product that everyone in the project is happy with. So that's collaboration with developers, providing them proper design assets, conducting reviews with the team, because sometimes when you hand over to a developer, what you get back is not exactly what you designed. So a lot of the skill of a designer is actually that one-on-one time with developers and problem solving. Then once we've got something which the team is happy with, we then test it again. So we're going to test at many stages throughout this product life cycle. We're going to test in the design stage, and then we're going to test again once we've implemented it. And that's really to make sure that it all works and it is ready to go. So there's a couple of things. We're going to do usability testing, make sure it all works. We're going to analyze the results, and we're going to iterate on the design. And then finally, once we've taken it through this whole process, we're ready to launch the product. And the launch stage really involves releasing it to the public. And as a designer, we've been involved in every bit of the process. We're going to now document what we've done, and when you launch something, it's really not the end of the world. There's then cycles after that, which we'll go through when we talk about, it's called a minimal viable product, which is basically when you start a new project, you create something called an MVP, which is what you release. But then once you've released that, you then add new features, and the design cycle continues. And you also monitor progress. You see performance analytics, see how it's behaving, and you want to constantly improve the design. So you can see the UX design process is like a big circle. There's research, design, building, learning, and you go back in this, and it's continuous improvement over time. And this is where I want to introduce you to a Japanese concept called Kaizen, which I find great, and I use it all the time. But it basically comes from the Japanese car industry. I think it might have been in the 80s or 90s when they were well ahead of the game. And they basically had this concept called Kaizen, which meant continuous change for the better or continuous improvement. So it was constantly releasing something, learning, iterating, and going again, and kind of having a never-ending cycle of production and quality. Kaizen has been introduced into digital design as something called the agile process for developing software. We're going to touch upon that later because that's how you actually work in real life. But throughout everything we do, we're going to think with our Kaizen heads on, and we're going to never think of anything finished. It's always released. What do we learn? How do we improve it for the next time?